Welcome to this video about calm. And I'm excited to talk about calm today because it is something that so many of us long for, is this ability to remain calm, or to have a calm, peaceful home, or to have wonderfully calm relationships. Maybe you think, if I had less to do, or if I had less responsibility, or I had less expectation, then I would be calmer. Or when I do have less of these things, I will be calmer, and then things will be easier. Although I rather wish that I could just have it right now. I want to be calm now, but I've got to get rid of all of these things that put pressure on me. And when I do, then I'll be calm. Well, this is a very exciting video because that is not actually how calm works, and you actually can be calm now despite not having less to do or less responsibility. Yay? Yes, yay! How exciting. If calm, the state of calm or the state of being calm, depended on life slowing down, then very few of us would ever experience it. And yet, we see people in the same situation as us feeling maybe, but appearing so much calmer than we are. So what I want to talk about today is the skill of staying calm when pressure increases. So that woman who things can happen around her and she just is calm and peaceful. And this is not about, she's not like that because she's suppressing her emotion, or she's holding everything together, or she's perhaps even pretending on the outside like things don't affect her, but that she actually is incredibly calm and peaceful. And the skill that will allow you to stay calm no matter what is going on around you, despite the pressure of responsibility or the expectations that are there, it is what I call emotional equilibrium. Emotional equilibrium gives you the internal steadiness, not what's going on out here, but internal steadiness that then allows you to stay clear, mentally clear, physically present, mentally present, and effective, even when life is suddenly speeding up, even when it is full of pressure. I teach this to my clients using what I call the everyday ease method. And I have seen its effectiveness in my clients as this experience of ease and calm become their natural default way of being, rather than that flustered, reactive way. Just a way of being that is internally peaceful, calm, and balanced. And so I know that it is possible for you too. And before we get into how you do that, I want to talk about why this matters more than ever. We are living in and working in environments that are faster, that are louder, that are more demanding than ever before. Research from the World Health Organization now recognizes chronic workplace stress as a major contributor to burnout and reduced performance. Studies are consistently showing that women in professional roles are carrying a disproportionately high emotional and cognitive load, both at work and at home. And this research is really important because it confirms for us what I want to share with you today. And that is the fact that women do not burn out because they are incapable, because they aren't strong enough, because they can't cope. Women burn out because they are trying to perform this expectation of calm, or perhaps even longing for this place of calm without the internal conditions that actually make calm possible. and yes, I said internal conditions, not external conditions, we need the internal capacity to create calm, even when the external is chaotic. So I will explain that more as we go on. But one thing I want to clear up before we even get started in that is that calm, or being a calm person, oh, she's such a calm person. It's not a personality trait. So some people believe, oh, well, I'm just not a calm person. I am too emotional. Other people are much calmer than me. Other people cope better than me. I'm just an anxious person. That is just the way that I am, although I so wish I could be different. Neuroscience and the study of the brain tell us a very different story about the state that we all long for. And it is very exciting because your ability to stay calm under pressure is not a character or a personality trait. It is not something that some people have and other people don't. Being calm and staying calm is a function of your nervous system capacity. So going back to the research in psychophysiology shows that when the nervous system is repeatedly exposed to perceived threat, so it's not necessarily threat. That threat might look like pressure, or it might look like evaluation or responsibility. It is a perceived threat to our well-being, to our sense of safety and security. When our nervous system is repeatedly exposed to this threat, it becomes less flexible. And it becomes then less able to find its way back to that place of neutral. So the more we are in a situation where we are exposed to perceived threat, and the more we are then in fight or flight, the harder it is for us to come back to neutral, to safe, to calm. So this then, though, shows up in the reactivity of living in that space of fight or flight. So we feel it. Physiologically, it makes us ill because we are in a state of hormonal cortisol pumping through our bodies. There's a whole lot physiologically going on. But behaviorally and emotionally, we are irritable. We are impatient. We experience brain fog. We experience this emotional reactivity. We find it incredibly difficult to make decisions. We come home at the end of the day and we are exhausted, so we end up snapping, even if nobody did anything wrong. So many clients say to me, why is it that I can hold it together at work? I can perform brilliantly at work. I hold meetings, I make big decisions, I stay composed. But I get home and I find myself snappy or withdrawing or just completely depleted and unable to give of myself to my children or my family. And this is why. Your system has been running all day long at capacity. It has been performing at a certain level externally, showing up, doing everything you need to do without the internal support that makes your steadiness, your certainty, your capacity sustainable. So then, as you are performing, as you are showing up beautifully, your capacity is just getting depleted to the point that if you think about it like an internal battery, you get to the point where the battery just has no charge left to it. It is empty. So you come out of work at the end of the day, empty battery, and yet you still have to move from your day job into your nighttime job, your job at home. You still have to keep going. And between the office and the house, there's no time to plug yourself in to recharge that battery before you step through the door into the next role, into the next job, into the next activity. Oh, it's exhausting. But and I've said this is simply biology. This is not a lifelong sentence because this is just the way that you are. The exciting thing is that as you build your resilience, you learn the tools that give you more control over your biology, more control over that battery. You learn how to shift your biology to protect your capacity so that you have more of it at the end of the day. So a lot of traditional stress management is going to focus on the external. Let's reduce the workload. Let's add self-care. Let's teach coping strategies like breathing or meditation to help balance the internal. But the problem is these are then taught in isolation to what's going on around you. And they can help. They help beautifully, but perhaps they only help temporarily, and inevitably you find yourself back where you started shortly after you've practiced these techniques. You're suddenly back in that state of stress and overwhelm. Because that stress is not just about what's happening around you. It's not just about your time management or your lack of self-care or, finding a quiet place for a moment. Stress is about what your system believes is at stake. The stress you feel, that you experience physiologically, is an internal response to what is happening around you. So what's at stake? Well, when your identity feels under threat. So when your identity as the good girl or your identity as the hustler, when you feel you've got to perform, you've got to prove yourself, you've got to not drop the ball or not disappoint anybody, then your nervous system stays on high alert. Your nervous system is now in this inflexible state of being ready to fight or flight the whole time. And no amount of deep breathing is going to override that nervous system for a long period of time or sustainably. So let's talk about then what actually does sustain a feeling of calm if pressure rises. The skill that allows you to stay calm, to maintain your battery power, to think clearly, to be focused, to be creative, to get things done is exactly what I've said earlier, this idea of emotional equilibrium. And so what is emotional equilibrium? Well, emotional equilibrium is the ability to experience an emotion, so to see an emotion happening and not to be hijacked by it. So I see this emotion and I don't necessarily give into it. And there is incredible skill to this first step of noticing, oh, that's interesting. I am feeling very anxious about this and being curious about it. And separating yourself. That's interesting. That's my emotion over here. And I am over here. And I'm going to have a look at that emotion. And I'm going to get to know that emotion. I'm going to understand that emotion. Which is easier said than done, because in the moment when an emotion happens, it's hard to objectify ourselves. But when you are able to experience that emotion but not give into it, not get hijacked by it, you are then able to respond to what you think is causing, or what is causing, what's triggering that emotion, rather than reacting to it. So let's give an example of that. Is that somebody raises an eyebrow at you and says something in what you experience as a judgmental voice, and you immediately get panicked that you've done something wrong. So one of the stress responses might be to fawn, to want to clear it up, to want to fix what you've done wrong. But when you have the ability to keep yourself from falling prey, if you like, to your emotions, and then saying, "Ooh, maybe that raised eyebrow was not actually about me, or maybe I can ask this person what that was about, or I can choose to respond in a different way, to say, yes, certainly I will go and do that task, or to respond just in a way that is not reactive, that is not fighting it or running away from it or freezing in the face of it or fawning." Those are our 4 stress responses. When you can respond, this allows you to stay internally steady. So maybe external demands increase and you feel that emotion arising, you look at it, you choose how you respond, and you find that your nervous system is now not pumping stress hormones through your body. You aren't getting geared up for a fight. You aren't feeling jumpy or antsy, like you have to fix everything. You are feeling focused. You're feeling at ease. You're retaining energy rather than expending it on all the chaos going on inside you. High performers who sustain their performance over time are not calmer because life is easier for them and there is no pressure around them. They are calmer because they have built that internal capacity to stay steady despite the challenges going on around them, despite the pressure. So research on emotional regulation, and especially around leadership, consistently shows that leaders like you, leaders of your home, leaders in your workplace, leaders who can regulate their internal state, they make better decisions, they communicate more clearly, they recover faster from stress, they are perceived as more trustworthy and effective, and their results as a result of all of this are much improved. What I really want to stress today, excuse the pun, this is not soft skill territory. This is not about feelings and the things that we don't want to necessarily bring into the workplace. This is about performance sustainability as a leader, as I say, of your home, of your workplace, of yourself in your home and in your workplace. The problem is that most of us high achieving women have learned to succeed through all the things that drain us rather than building us up. We've learned that over responsibility, self-monitoring and editing, something we all do. Oh, did I say the right thing? Have I done it right? Should I say that? Perfectionism, staying agreeable and kind of people pleasy, if that's even under a word, under pressure. These strategies do work. They did work until they don't, because they are exhausting. And they may create results in the short term. They may create approval and affirmation, but they also create internal strain. And over time, that strain will erode your emotional equilibrium. And what happens then is you end up losing patience. You end up being snappy. You end up feeling overwhelmed. You end up not getting the results that you want. And you think then, oh, I'm just an emotional person. I'm just a person who can't cope with the pressure. But the real issue is actually that you have been operating within a system that has been driving you forward without enough internal support. And without this internal support, we end up desperately searching for external support, because when we don't have the internal support, the story that this creates is that we cannot cope. And yet, ironically, when you build that internal support, the external support, the approval, the affirmation, that becomes a nice to have rather than a must have for your performance, for your value, for your confidence and your enoughness. So how do we do that? Well, staying calm under pressure is not about tricks or tips or things that I can give you in this instance. It is simple, but it's not necessarily easy. And it is about requiring the basic building blocks of resilience. These building blocks include identity stability, nervous system regulation, the internal permission to pause, to slow down, to be objective, the ability to set and keep boundaries. And this one is especially with yourself. Boundaries that are going to protect your energy, not just your time. And finally, emotional literacy, getting to know what is it that I really feel. And this might sound like a lot. It might sound overwhelming. You may not even know what I mean when I say these things. But the joy is that these are trainable capacities. These capacities are things that I work with my clients and in organizations that want to retain high-performing women without burning them out. And I have seen firsthand these skills being built up. I've seen them in action. And it is so powerful when women integrate the skill set of resilience into their lives so that they are able to develop the skill of emotional equilibrium. And so what does it actually look like once they've done this? I'm sorry to say that it doesn't mean that life suddenly becomes calm or quiet or peaceful, but it does perhaps become easier. And I know how many of us are looking for more ease. And this has become because you become steadier, you become more at ease, and then life becomes easier. On a day-to-day basis, this might mean that you notice pressure rising and you don't immediately brace yourself or panic or try to control it or fight what is going on. It means maybe that you are able to pause before you react. Instead of snapping, instead of shutting down, instead of racing at something, you slowly, intentionally decide how you want to approach it. Maybe it looks like staying present in conversations that would normally dysregulate you, that would make you defensive or reactive. Maybe that's at a meeting, or maybe it's at a moment at home with your children. You are able to stay in that conversation without losing your focus and your capacity to be present. When you build these skills, you have then enough internal space to think clearly, to make decisions, to respond rather than react, even when the pace is high, even when the stakes feel real, when there is pressure. You are able to hold yourself in that pressure. And perhaps most importantly, the really beautiful result is that you come home at the end of the day having performed at your best with something, and possibly with a lot of something left in the tank, with a lot of battery left to offer to your family and to yourself. And this again is not necessarily because the day was less pressurized or busy, but because you had that internal support, that internal steadiness and calm as you moved through your day. So as we wrap up today, the first message I want you to hear is that you are not stuck in a state of stress, overwhelm, reactivity, and exhaustion. You are not unable to stay calm because you are too uptight, you're just an emotional person, and you just wish that you were like that friend or that colleague or that other mum who doesn't get flustered or stressed by anything. You need support building the internal conditions that make calm possible under pressure. And as I work both individually and increasingly inside organizations, I love supporting working mums who are carrying significant responsibility, women who are leading teams, who are managing complexity, who are making decisions and holding relationships and being relied on, sometimes without much margin for error. When you as an individual and organizations support the women inside them to build emotional equilibrium, what we are really doing is protecting decision quality, leadership presence, long-term sustainability. We're not just preventing burnout after the fact. So I just want to reiterate before we come to the end of this video, if you have been wishing for life to slow down so that you can finally feel calm, remember that calm does not come from less pressure. Calm comes from more internal capacity, and this is something that you can build.